Chapter 12 21st of May 2008. Zack's eyes opened, and he looked upwards. He was still lying down, and the humming from the capacitor was louder than before. But this time things were different. His eyes were sticky, and he could smell bacon. As he moved his head around, he noticed that the Professor was no longer visible. The collar of his shirt scratched against his neck, and as he started to move, he noticed that all of his clothes felt odd for some reason, stiffer, as if they were starched, something that Zack would never do. He sat up. The room looked quite different, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. Had it worked? Had he travelled to the past? This was a bit much to take in. Behind him, the cell print table had a long metal stand, on which hung some large see-through plastic bags hung from metal poles with tubes, which resembled a larger version of the drip bag that gave him antibiotics when he was at the hospital that time after coming off his bike. Zack soon came to the assumption that this was what the Professor was trying to explain to him in the video. It was like he was laid on a large 3D printer, and his DNA was printed out of the weird goo. A jar next to it, marked fibre, was almost empty. He examined himself. Everything seemed to be okay. He could hear and see and smell, and even touched his face to see if this was real. The door opened, and out came a man approximately 50 years old. He was wearing a lab coat, which had lots of pens in the pockets, and an ID badge dangling around his neck on a metal chain. He swept what was left of his hair across the top of his head, and looked carefully at Zack. "Hello again," he said. Zack looked puzzled. "Have we met?" "Yes, a couple of times now, but that doesn't matter. How are you?" "Are you Professor Eric Mullins?" asked the traveller. "The very same," he said, "and this is my niece Ria." Behind him there was a young lady about 20 years old. She was wearing a white lab coat, but the bleached white was broken up by the flowing red hair parted in the middle, falling over her ears and covering her shoulders. The paleness of her face was accompanied by the freckles on her cheeks. Ria gave a little wave and in a soft voice asked, "How many times is it this time?" Zack looked at them both, completely dumbstruck. "We appreciate this must be difficult for you. We are still getting our heads around it too. To be honest, it still makes my brain itch trying to work out how this is even possible." Eric swept his comb-over back into place again. Ria looked carefully at Zack. He looked back at her. "You're going to think this is weird, but did it work? Did I time travel?" The Professor nodded and cupped his hand around his chin in thought. "Yes, it did," replied Ria with an excited tone in her voice. "Welcome to 2008. What date have you come from?" 17th February 2038, Zack replied, and he paused to think of something intelligent to ask. "What's going on in this decade?" The Professor smiled. "Good. It's the same as last time. That upgrade to the time circuits helped." "Last time? But I don't remember doing this before. I think I would have remembered that." Zack listened as the Professor explained how tricky time travel was, and that it was even trickier to get to the destination accurately. From time to time, Ria would pop in some snippets of info to break it down into simpler terms for Zack. Zack was grateful for this because it helped, as Eric was very technical in his language and used lots of words that Zack didn't fully understand. "So you know why I'm here, then?" asked Zack. "Of course. You're going to need this." She handed him a digital camera. "Take as many photos as you can. The more, the better," replied the young assistant. "We've modified it so that every time you take a picture, it will auto-upload to the lab, and I can put together a profile of the investigation." "Is there a way to get there without having to go through the caves?" Zack asked the holoprof. "There is a way. You need to get out of the Abbey, through the town, behind the cinema, and down the back fence. Then head towards the river and up Appleton Hill to get to New Haven." Rhea showed him the way to the main exit, passing him a coat. "Here, it's cold out there," she said with a smile. The outside was chilly and dark, and he zipped up the coat, pulling the hood up to keep himself warm. It was difficult to get his bearings at first. He thought he recognized where he was, but quickly became confused.